Audio test. Audio test. Hello and good evening, guys. Is anyone here in the stream right now? If you are, put something in the chat. I see 3 people on the stream monitor, so I think there'll be, what, 2 people watching? Anyway, welcome to a lovely evening here in Montreal. And right in front of us is, I think, a sight that most of us really miss, not being able to travel during the COVID times. Seeing your airplane sitting at the gate waiting to take you somewhere. So, quick plan for the evening. We're going on a non-scheduled flight from Montreal to Washington. We should be departing in about 15-20 minutes, right at the cusp of sunset, and as we climb up, we're actually going to outrun the sunset briefly. And then we get to enjoy the whole process all over again during about an hour of cruising. And then we are going to head into Washington Reagan National, and we will take the beautiful river visual approach into runway 19. So winds are perfect for the runway 19 approach. And we should be arriving there right after dark, which is going to be a pretty nice sight in Microsoft Flight Sim. I think it's one of the strong points of this sim is the graphics. So without further delay, let's jump into the flight deck and get this flight on the way. So we're in an A320neo. As with most A320s, very simple to start up. Here's a battery switch, battery 1 and battery 2 on. Check the voltage, 25.4, that's good. External power is available, we'll switch that to on. And then now we basically go through the overhead and just turning off every single white light. So right here, crew oxygen supply, turn that to auto. These fault light we can't do anything with. Ground proximity warning systems, that needs to wait until the navigation system initializes. Working up here, most of these stuff are not operational. ADIRS stands for Air Data Inertial Referencing System. What this does is it provides navigation by using a bunch of laser gyros. So what we do is we take system 1, go to nav, make sure a line shows up. System 2, nav, make sure a line lights up. And system 3, nav, make sure a line lights up. So that's our 3 systems being aligned for our navigation. Coming back down here, external lights, we're going to go nav and logo on, wing lights on. That's basically a light that shines over the wing, so when we do our inspection we can see that. Everything else stays off for now. And anti-ice, everything stays off over here. Program window heat, you can see auto setting right here, so if you don't have anything pressed, it's auto. If you press it, it turns on, so we'll leave it in auto. And coming up through here, top 3 switches, we want to switch it onto the green arrow, and the air conditioning system will be managed automatically. As with most things in the Airbus, most stuff is automatic, and you don't really switch them on, you just switch them between off and auto. Coming up here, generator fault because our engines aren't started, that's fine. And continuing up, white lights, turn everything off. And what we're doing there, that's the fuel pumps. Again, you're switching them from off to auto. First flight of the day, we need to do a fire test. Press the test button. APU fire lights up, we hear a warning. Release the test switch. Engine fire test we don't need to do right now. Coming down here, everything here is not really simulated, so we don't need to worry about that too much. Looking up overhead, nothing here is really simulated, and up above, audio switch is normal, and none of this stuff is simulated. And one final thing here is this area. That's our overhead lighting system. We don't really need to worry about that. If it's too dark, we can turn the dome light on, but it's a bit early for that. And one last thing is the emergency light switch. You can see it's showing off. This one we don't press a button. We just switch it to arm. Off light goes off, and now the emergency light is armed. So if we have an accident and we lose power, the emergency lighting system will take over. Seatbelt sign go on, and no smoking goes to on. And that's the overhead complete. You can see our instruments right here. nothing is really lit up. You can see GPS primary lost because we haven't aligned our IRS yet. So you see inertial referencing in align 6 minutes, and that's what we did with the 3 gyro systems to align them before flight. Now we get to the fun stuff. This is what's known as the FMGC. I don't remember exactly what it stands for. It's called the FMC on the Boeing airplane, Flight Management Computer, and the entirety of the flight is programmed in this little box right here, including all the autopilot functions. So right here, we're looking for our aircraft data. A320, that checks out. Engine's the LEAP A1, that's the new engine. These massive things down here. So that checks out. Active navigation database is valid until December the 3rd, 2020, which means we are good for that. Second navigation database is going to be the same, and then the other one is from 4th of May to 4th of July, which we cannot use because we're way past that. Code fly-by-wire, that's just a placeholder. In an actual airplane, you will see a bunch of random or seemingly random letters and numbers going through here, and you have to check that with your flight plan. Idle thrust offset is 0. This tends to happen with airplane with modifications on there, or older airplanes. You might say, okay, it burns like 0.5 more at idle, so you go 0.5. Performance plus 2.4, again, this stuff's not simulated, that's just default. We hit the init button for initialization, and we enter this field right here. We're flying from Montreal, CYUL, / going to Washington, which is KDCA. All Canadian airport start with C, all US airport start with K. Put that into there, none, that's fine, we just hit return. Flight number 8824, this is actually a flight number for Jazz that usually operates this route. But obviously we don't have the airplane type in the sim, so we're just flying as an Air Canada. Air Canada uses cost index of 22 usually, so that's what we're going to put in. And we are cruising at, I need to look at my flight plan here. We should be cruising at, no, we're going to 380 on this one, so 38,000 feet, flight level 380. Put that in, and temperature minus 52 is just calculated. IRS initialization. Look at this stuff, make sure this makes sense. Yep, that looks good. Align on ref, confirm align, and that will give the airplane our initial position. Because the gyro systems, they only maintain your position, they don't know where you started, so you need to, that's what we're doing, we're telling it where we started. Now, fuel. Usually you will have this stuff on your flight plan. With the simulated version, you click that, it will calculate it for you. So that's going to give us a zero fuel weight of 44.4 tons and a center of gravity of 23.1. And our block fuel, again, check our flight plan. Our block fuel is going to be 5,088. We're going to add another 1,500 to that, so 6,588. So 6.6. There we go. And let's just check that we do have that. We have 7,220, that's fine. And down here, reserve, we are looking for 1 ton right there. This stuff are usually calculated. It's not simulated yet in this version. It will be, but usually you will have final a certain amount, and then you have minimum destination fuel on board that will be calculated. These won't be 0, but in this case it is. So that's the initialization done. Next we go to the flight plan, and this is going to be a lot of work because you can't do a flight plan uplink in this. In real life, what they do is they will use the FMC to message your dispatch, and they will upload all the flight plan waypoints into here. We have to do this all manual. So for departure, we are going to be taking either 6 right or 2 4 left. We need to tune to ATIS to check that. ATIS is our weather information. And the frequency for that is 133.7. I have Flight Plan Go running on my cell phone. It is a real life app for pilots. and you have all the real life information on there, and that's what I'm referencing out of. 133.7, and I have the ATC audio disabled because we're not using it. Default ATC is just always atrocious in flight sim, so we're not going to be using that. Temperature 7, we are looking for the wind. We can set the altimeter in the meantime. This is showing us the sea level pressure. Runway 24 are in use, so we're going to be departing runway 24 left. In real life, 24 right is actually closed right now, so that's the north of the two runways at Trudeau. They are about to open it back up for winter operations, but I don't know exactly when that is. So departure, a very simple procedure out of Montreal. You just climb runway heading until air traffic control tells you otherwise. So we're going to go to that waypoint, go to airways, and we will key in our entire flight plan. So this is going to take a while. So our flight plan, I'm going to see if it does this. Usually what you do is you enter the airway here, and then you can enter a waypoint here. Everything in between gets automatically inserted. But this doesn't seem to work when I tried it before, so I'll try it again this time. But first one, direct fonts waypoint. These waypoints are completely GPS based. They have there's no actual physical thing on the ground. So 5-letter words are usually for GPS-based waypoints, so they're literally just virtual points. There's no physical interpretation of these. Whereas 3-letter codes tend to be VORs, where there is a physical station on the ground. Next one is Bugsy. All of these words are pronounceable, by the way. That's how they are designed. It's automatic, so Victor 282 to Bugsy, and then direct Alpha Lima Bravo. See, this is a VOR. I'm not sure exactly what VOR that is. And it's taking a while, which means there's probably a duplicate somewhere, and we need to select the one that's relevant to us. It does have a delay in the real airplane, but it's usually not this long. Let's try that again. Alpha Lima Bravo. There we go. Simulation is not perfect in this. This is actually a third-party mod. The default one is even worse. Alpha Lima Bravo, then we're taking airway Juliet 6. Again, see, it just doesn't want to insert into there. In the real airplane, you hit Juliet 6, you put that into there, and you put where you want to come out of that airway. So we're just going to do it manually. Coming out at Towen. It's automatic, there we go. So that's how that works. Now, in the real airplane, you hit this up arrow and you get the next line. In this, not simulated, so we do temporary insert. And then we have to hit, well, here's a problem. Why do we have ALB twice? So we need to check our flight plan, the details. So that is, ALB is Albany. And then we are going to Towen. So this last one, we don't need this one. There we go. Makes that modification. And from Towen, we're going to do the same thing, airways. And go back to our condensed flight plan. We're continuing on Juliet 6 to Hotel Oscar Uniform Tango November. It's completely wrong. Tango November. There we go. Victor 457, that's not right. It should be continuing on Juliet 6, but we will check all of this in our planning phase. And it's going to be Juliet 6 to Lima Romeo Papa. So Lima Romeo Papa. And this will transition us into our arrival procedure. Come on, get up there. These are a duplicate or just something. Yeah, it's a duplicate. So what you do here is we are in the northern hemisphere, so that south one is definitely not us. Usually this is displayed to be whichever one's closest to you. So north and west, that makes sense. South and east definitely doesn't make sense. So we select the one that makes sense. And again, Victor 457, that's wrong. I'm assuming it's the same waypoint, same airway though. And from there, we're going to go to our arrival procedure. So let's just quickly check. Victor 457 to that, Lima Romeo Papa, and we go to our arrival, select arrival. Now we are taking the visual for runway 19, but we need to program something into the FMC to know that to tell it where we're going. And we will be using the RNAV runway 19 as a guidance. It's the same procedure as a visual, but flown on the instruments. And we're just going to use it as a little backup in case we don't break out of the cloud or anything. I haven't checked the weather in DC. It should be good, but that will be a nice backup. What RNAV is regional navigation, and it's basically a completely GPS-based precision approach. So it's pretty much the only approach where you can fly using GPS only without having to base it off of anything on the ground. So as far as this is concerned, the ground doesn't exist. It's flying you a specific path down to a point, at which point you must see the runway or you can't keep going low. Now the STAR, or Standard Terminal Arrival Procedure, is going to be the Skills 4, which is going to bring us in from the north, turning us to the west and then back to the east for the approach. So Skills 4 right there. And that doesn't want to select. No idea why. Yeah, there it is. Approach VS, we don't need any approach VS. We're actually going to enter the Fergie waypoint manually for the RNAV. There you go, transition Lima Romeo Papa from our route directly via Fergie onto the RNAV 19 and from the Skills 4 terminal arrival procedure. So that should be in there. So there's skills, and I'm going to pull up my chart to check that is correct. The database in Microsoft Flight Sim is relatively modern, obviously because it just released. So I mean, it better be modern, but we can actually reference real life charts. It hasn't gone too far off. So Bravo Alpha Lima, that is Baltimore, which is our first VOR point. And then we go to eyes, and then we turn westbound, and that is completely incorrect. After eyes, there's actually a load of waypoints, so let's insert all of those. The next one is EDD, WD, so next waypoint, insert, and you have to scroll through this. Again, one of those annoying things that you have to put up with in these early versions. Yeah, that doesn't want to work either, so now we gotta put this in one at a time, which is annoying, but we gotta put up with it. You know what, let's just skip everything for the sake of time and go straight to our last waypoint, because it's just a straight line over there. So next destination, or rather next waypoint, is November Alpha Yankee Echo Sierra, and hit next waypoint, insert. All the way down, and whoever's in the chat, I don't know who you are, but I'm guessing you're one of those people from BC, because that pun is, well, it's older than me almost. Yeah, that's our route complete. So that's the most painful stuff done, at least in this version. It's way easier in the properly simulated FMC with the Airbus. We will do that in a future stream where I actually take a properly simulated Airbus in another sim platform for the same flight. So next we are going to go to performance. This is for our takeoff, flaps 1. And we are relatively light, so we can flex to 35 degrees. What this does is it artificially lowers the engine power to reduce wear and tear. Transition altitude 10,000 is wrong, it's 18,000 in North America. And these stuff again come from a flight plan. Your dispatch will give you these, but we just hit that, it will calculate. And what we have is at 114 knots, we must decide if we want to take off or stop. We're going to lift the nose at 118, and if we lose an engine on departure, we need to accelerate to 123 before climbing. Next phase, cost index manage cruise, climb, sorry, that's fine. Cruise, that's fine. And this, by the way, is how quickly the airplane will pressurize. And descent, that's fine. We're going to be managing 240 knots in the descent. And approach, everything here will enter later because we need the weather, like the sea level pressure, temperature, and everything. That's good. Hit performance once. Back to the takeoff page. In real life, on this side, you will set it to flight plan, but these are actually linked in the sim, so we can only have the performance page. Now, overhead, everything should be set up. Next, what we're going to do is start the auxiliary power unit. Very easy on the Airbus. Hit the master switch, hit the start, everything goes on. We come down here to the ICAS, lower ICAS, and everything here will start to kick off. EGT is 6 degrees, which is outside air temperature, makes sense. It hasn't been running. It will start to rise as the fuel goes in. In percentage, this is how quickly the power unit is running. It's basically a small jet engine, so you want 100% on this. And UGT starts to rise very rapidly. You can see it can go up to 1,000 degrees. It will get very hot in the beginning as the fuel is being introduced. A lean fuel mixture tends to yield to increased engine temp. .38, 39. It will kind of pause at about 50. This is normal as the APU stabilizes, and then it's going to increase to 100. Once it's started up, we will get APU available right here, and on the overhead, we are going to get available right here in green. So while that's being done, we can set up everything else. Now, the general flow in these airplanes is the captain is responsible for everything here, going this way and down, and then the glare shield all the way across. Or rather, the captain is responsible for this section, and the first officer does the glare shield all the way across. Go to his side, this way and down, and then the overhead panel. Obviously, I'm the only one flying, so we have to condense it. So we're going to start on this side. Display brightness, that's fine. We'll leave that as it is. Flight director goes on. This will give you the green bar, and that's going to be both sides. There are independent systems, redundancy, like most things in these commercial jets. Coming across, map select, we're actually going to keep it in arc because we're departing straight out, so we don't need to see what's behind you. If you have to make a 180-degree turn after takeoff, you go to nav mode, and it will put you at the center so you can see what's behind you. We're going to go through the plan mode a bit later. And then coming through here, we want these to be blank with a solid dot. This means manage mode, so the airplane will manage everything. 5,000 feet is the initial climb. Air traffic control will give you that in the real world, but we're not using that. And coming across first officer side, we'll just leave everything alone. And coming down through here, standby attitude indicator. So if everything here fails, we still get all the information like airspeed, altitude, and everything here. We're going to just dial this up to the same altimeter setting, 3006. There we go, that's done. APU is available. Check that, it is available. And we're going to put on is APU bleed air. So there's a compressed air from the auxiliary power unit, and it will provide air conditioning. Now coming down through here, we're looking at the door page, that's fine. Two things we need to check. Enough oil quantity, 25 for each engine, that's fine. Fuel, cross check, make sure that's good. We have them loaded in the proper tanks. Standard tank is empty for a flight like this. Again, you want to make sure everything makes sense. Hydraulics, well, the page hasn't been implemented yet. Electricals hasn't been implemented. And this is a bleed air, you don't really need to check anything here. I'm specifically looking for the crew and passenger oxygen. There we go. Cockpit oxygen, 1700 psi, both sides, that's good. And I believe passenger oxygen is in one of the pressurization pages, which we can't see. So that's fine. We'll just say it's good. If it's not simulated, it's not going to fail. So we don't need to worry too much about that. And let's just turn on some lights as it gets dark. And transponder code, again, air traffic control gives you this in real life. We're just going to put in a random code. We can switch it on to auto, altitude reporting, leave it to on, and TCAS, traffic collision avoidance system, stays in standby. Down here, parking brake is set, and that's our flow complete. One last thing before we get on the way, go to plan mode, and just basically walk through our route, make sure everything looks fine. So we're going to depart, go through our waypoints. We're just making sure there's no big jagged lines, nothing that doesn't make sense. And there we go, these are final approach points. They look good. And there is our destination. So everything here is good. Go back to performance page. And everything is set up. I think we are ready for pushback. Let's turn on a few more lights. You can never have enough lights, especially in a graphically strong sim. There we go, everything's lit up like a Christmas tree. We can switch off external power. So that's going to disconnect the airplane completely from the ground. And now we are ready to go through the fun and adventures of the stupid pushback system in the sim. So what we can do is beacon lights on. What that is this right here. That will tell everyone you're about to move. And next step, here's a stupid part. We need to call ground, which is correct. We can request pushback. This is what you do in real life. You do call ground or apron or tower or whatever it is that you have to call. And yes, they will say pushback approved, and they will tell you where to go. Not so much in this one. So what you have to do is look at your airplane, move this off to the side, and you basically control your tug by talking to the tower controller. Can you imagine how much chaos this would be in real life? Imagine having to go through ATC to instruct your tug driver how to drive. I have no idea why they decided to implement it this way. And it is even more surprising that they haven't updated it. It's just ridiculous. So tug starts, let's release parking brake. Again, in real life, you make sure you talk through that, make sure the crew has the parking brake off before you push. None of that simulated. And I just kind of have to guess exactly where I wanted to turn right. Let's say about there. And then we wait for this whole delay thing. Like, you would never say this in real life. That's ridiculous. I mean, in real life, what you do is you plug a wire into there, and the other side plugs into a tug, and you can just talk directly to the tug operator. And my plan is, because of this dumb system, instead of going this way, requiring a lot of precision, I'm just going to have it go straight and kind of push me to like here, and then we'll start the engines. Jump back into the flight deck. Beautiful sunset over there. I took a little bit longer to prepare for the flight than I would have liked, but it looks like we're gonna get some good scenery on our way up. Let's say stop here and wait for it to stop. Again, ready on the parking brake. Once it stops, we need parking brake immediately. There we go, parking brake on. Now we're good. Now we can close that and leave the air traffic control to scream at us, telling us we're not clear to take off, which we are gonna ignore completely. Parking brake is set. Starting the engine in the Airbus, very simple. You turn the ignition switch to start, and you flip one switch. Everything else is done for you. There are things you have to look for. N2, the high pressure spool, so the inside of the engine, you want to make sure that is spooling up. You want to observe N1 rotation, that's the big fan in front. There we go, that is increasing. And once fuel flow goes in, there we have fuel flow. You want to observe N1 rotation, N2 increasing, observe fuel flow, oil pressure rising. Everything looks normal so far. Exhaust gas temperature is rising. Again, it will peak at some point and then drop back. We're looking for a stable N1 of about 19.8%. Okay, engines online, and listen very carefully. That sound was the power transfer unit, or PTU. In the real Airbus, you can't hear that in the flight sim. It's located between the wings, right under the floorboard for the passenger cabin. So if you fly an A320 and you hear that, that's what you're hearing. What that does is when you have one engine running, it pumps hydraulic fluid from one system to the other. I think it's between the blue and yellow system, and basically equalizes the pressure in the hydraulic lines. So that's what that is. Same procedure on the left side. N2 is rising, N1 is rising, EGT is rising, we have positive oil pressure. And about 19.5. There you go, engines are stable, start is complete, ignition switch back to normal, and that's all there is to it. That's how you start off an Airbus. Now we do a quick flow from left to right. Flight instruments are checked, navigation display looks good. We're going to go auto brake to max for takeoff, so if we reject the takeoff, the brakes will automatically kick in to max. Check brake accumulator pressure is in the green. Down here wheels are good. Auto brake is set to max. Coming down here, FMC pages are set. And continuing down through here, transponder is good. We're actually going to turn that to on. Airports like Montreal uses ground radar, so you need to turn that on so the ground controller can see where you are. Everything here looks good. Rudder trim is center. We're going to select flaps 1 for takeoff. If you remember, we programmed that in, flaps 1 right here. And what it does is 1 plus flaps, so you get the slats in the front of the wing, and then it will deploy flaps on the back. And you can see that right there, front and behind. And that is pretty much all there is to it. We're going to turn off the APU bleed air, because now we have the engines running, and we're going to turn off the APU. We can switch wing lights off. Icing isn't much of a concern. We can turn strobes to auto. It's not going to turn them on. We don't turn them on until the runway. But everything here looks good. We're going to wait until we exit the ramp before we switch nose light on. The nose light is a taxi light. It's mounted quite high, so when you're in the ramp, you risk blinding everyone. So we'll go parking brake off, bring up some throttle. It takes a lot of power to taxi in this. And we will get going. The sun is setting much faster than I thought it would, so it looks like it's gonna turn into a night flight. Just exiting the ramp, I'm going to grab my hat. And just get out of the ramp, and then I'm going to turn on track IR so I get the view system tracking my head movement. It makes taxiing and taking off a lot easier. It's not critical when you're flying a jet like this, but if you're flying like a smaller airplane, visually, it's almost a must-have. We'll center the system, and there we go. Now I can look around freely. So it's going to be a long taxi. I'm going to try and speed this up as much as possible, but there's no way around it. We're going from one corner of the airport to the other. So yeah, it's gonna take a while. And as we exit the ramp right here, we're pointing away from all the ground stuff. We can switch our nose light. If track arrow will work with me, let's just pause it. Nose light goes to taxi. And there we go. Now the ground is lit up in front of us. We're going to carry on out of the ramp. We're going to turn right onto the east-west taxiway. And then we're going to take a left turn onto Alpha and go all the way down the end. We're taxiing for about like 3 kilometers right here. And if you just take a look at the power, we're at about 34% on the power setting, which is way too high compared to real life. You don't need that much power to keep the airplane rolling. In the real Airbus, I don't know about the Neos, but the ones with the old engine, you can exceed 40% on the engine power, so this is pretty unrealistic. We can go up to 30 knots on the ground. Ground speed is indicated right there. You see GS 25. We're going to go up to 30 knots and we'll bring the throttle back to about 31%. That will maintain the speed roughly. Bring the power back a little bit and we will do our before takeoff checks. So auto brake is max, signs are on, cabin check is not our responsibility, spoilers armed, so you just pull that out. It's armed, and takeoff config test, you hit the takeoff config and it's normal, so we are good. Right here, TCAS is standby, that's fine. Predicted wind shear is off, you want that to stay off. What that does is it uses a weather radar to predict when there's going to be a big shift in wind. And you want to keep that off for now because you don't want to basically get everyone on the ground radiation poisoning from your weather radar just running inches from their face. You want to be a little bit slower for those turns in real life, but again, we're trying to save some time here. You want about 15 knots through those turns probably. So we're going to continue straight ahead. Taxiway Alpha is going to be the first left. You can see the windsock on the left. The wind is coming from our right hand side, which makes sense because we're going to be turning to the left and then basically U-turning onto the runway right beside us and taking off to behind us. Here's runway 28. Usually when you enter a runway, you need strobe lights on and landing lights on. Don't need to do that here because 28 is officially closed right now. And you can see there's a big X on the runway. So that's not a runway anymore, basically, at least temporarily. So before takeoff, let's do a few things with the stream. We need all this information cluttering up the display, and I'm not going to have any time to look at the chat for a while. I mean, not that there's anything going on in the chat, I don't think. So we're going straight down here, about 2 kilometers down the line. You can see the end right about there. We'll just keep the airplane at about 30 knots ground speed. And one last thing that we do have to do before departure is a flight controls check. You don't need to do anything to change the displays. You move the flight controls, automatically comes up. So ailerons full left, you want cross full left. Spoilers up, aileron left up, right down, and full right, the opposite. Spoilers up, right up, left down, cross full right, and you go full up. You want cross full up, and elevators full up, and full down, cross full down, and elevators full down. In real life, you hold the nose wheel tiller straight, and you use test the rudder pedal. That stuff is linked in the sim, so we can't do that. Again, when I get my usual sim platform, which is called Prepared, once I get version 5 of that done and dusted, we will switch to that for these airliner flights and it will be much more realistic. So away from the apron area, we can do our before takeoff flow. We're just going to keep the airplane rolling straight onto the runway. Predicted wind shear goes to auto. Traffic advisory goes to TARA, which stands for traffic advisory and resolution advisory. So if you're on a collision course with someone, it will tell you that A, there is someone, and B, how to, not hit that someone. Everything else is good. We have climb and nav in the green on the autopilot. When we hit the throttle, we're looking for a man flex plus 35 SRS runway. So you basically throttle up 2 detents, so you should hear 2 clicks as we throttle up. And runway entry procedure, we can go landing lights on, nose to takeoff. Runway turn-off lights on. You turn these on to avoid bird strike by lighting up your airplane like a Christmas tree, and strobe lights on. We'll turn right here. So if we quickly look outside, we're lit up like a Christmas tree. And entering the runway, we are clear final and clear on the runway. There's no one else in the sim but me, but it's a good habit to check. And just confirm runway 24 left. We will also start the chronometer that will give us our airtime. And finally notify the cabin. So seatbelt sign off, seatbelt sign on, that's 2 chimes. If you're flying commercial and you hear those 2 chimes, that's what it is. Alright, we're aligned with the runway, 24 on the ground, 24 on the heading. We're going to go power 50%. Both engines symmetrical, stable, no warnings. We're going to go 1 click, 2 click. We have flex plus 35 SRS runway, stick full forward below 80 knots. 80 knots on the airspeed, start relaxing the back pressure. Neutral 100 knots is checked. V1 continuing and rotate, nose up. Positive rate, gear up. We're very light, so we got up there in no time. And we're going to maintain runway heading. And we're going to climb to 5,000 feet. Gears are up, no lights. And now the Airbus really comes into its own because it has auto trim and auto rudder. You can see flashing on the top left of our primary flight display, it says lever climb, so we're reducing the thrust to climb. Now we have auto throttle. So the thrust lever doesn't change position in the Airbus, and the throttles will be managed by the computer to maintain a certain speed. Airspeed is coming up to the S mark. That is our flaps retraction speed. So at that speed, I'm going to go flaps up right here. And climbing through 3,500, we're going to keep climbing for a bit, and I'm going to dial the altitude up. We have no air traffic control, we can just do as we please basically. And slash speed, we will go flaps up, and right there you see flaps up, and this display will contract to be a more condensed version. So arriving at 5,000 feet, 2 things we gotta do. We hit direct on the flight management computer, first waypoint, and we will confirm direct, and then we will basically leave our terminal departure procedure onto our flight plan route. Let's dial our altitude up. I'm going to select 18,000 feet. That's the part where we transition into the flight levels, and I will explain what that is right there. I'm going to be manually flying the airplane up to about 9,500 because the autopilot doesn't work correctly. In real life, what it does is it sets a thrust, and then it's going to pitch the airplane up and down to maintain the speed. But in this, it doesn't do that. It just puts you in like a really gradual climb, and then it will change the thrust to fit that climb, which is wrong. Seems to work after 10,000 feet though, so we're going to fly it up to 9,500, and we're going to engage autopilot 1. Lowering the nose a little bit, we're falling underneath our target speed. About 9,700, autopilot 1 on. Keep your hand on the stick for a bit, make sure the autopilot does engage. There we go, we have autopilot 1, auto throttle, flight director 1 and 2. And crossing 10,000, the speed limit of 250 knots is removed, so you accelerate to your best climb speed. Like the most economical speed basically for your cost index. Looking outside, beautiful scenery. Pretty much the best point about the sim at this point, if I'm honest. And also crossing 10,000 feet, what we can do is landing lights off and retract. Nose light can go off. Everything else stays on, and runway turnoff lights can go off, because I'm not sure if birds fly above 10,000 feet, but that's usually where you turn that off. And crossing through 12,000, we can finish up the rest of our checklist. So speed brakes can go to disarm, and everything should clear up except no smoking and seatbelts. And if you notice, auto brake went off automatically. That's on a pressure sensor. So when the main gears lift off and it no longer detects a weight on the main gears, that auto brake will switch off automatically. Most modern airplanes are like that. Boeing's, Airbus, Embraers, most of them are like that. It's only really the older ones, like the 737s or pretty much just the 737s I can think of, where you have to manually do that to off. So 15,000 feet. What we're doing right now, if you notice this 30.06, probably easier to see here, 30.06, that's what's known as a local altimeter setting. So that's the actual altitude above sea level. What we're going to do at 18,000 feet is switch to the standard setting, or 29.92, and that's known as the standard setting because everyone flying above 18,000 feet is on that setting. What that does is, as you cruise all over the world, as the pressure changes around you, you are staying at the same altitude compared to everyone else. See all of these red lights? I believe my space perception is not perfect at this kind of speed. I believe that's a windmill farm, so wind turbines for electricity. I have uploaded the full flight of my 150 nautical miles solo. Yeah, no, that's not it, but there is a wind farm somewhere over there. And in that you can see the wind turbines. So 18,000 feet, airplane is leveling off. We can dial this up to our cruising altitude of flight level 380. And that's another distinction above the transition altitude, is you don't say how many thousand feet anymore. You say flight level, and you drop the 2 zeros at the end. So 38,000 feet is flight level 380. Crossing 18,000 feet, hold the knob, standard, we're good. I see some cloud layer up here, so we're going to leave the seatbelt sign on until we climb above that. And another thing we have to do, because it's unrealistic, is we need to turn all the anti-ice on. In the real Airbus, these are managed manually, but the probes and window heat is managed automatically. The auto doesn't work properly in the sim, so you have to just turn it on. And also for these, you generally turn those on when you know there's icing condition on the ground, or when you get a icing warning on the on your status display right here. But the status display is not simulated, so you just have to kind of guess and put that on as you go through some clouds, because you never know when there might be icing. Oh, and hi Derek. Didn't see you in the chat there. Glad you can come in and see the stream. But yeah, this is what we do basically. It's our first one. We are going to do more of this. I think there's like, what, 3 people watching or something, which is actually about 2 more than I expected. So yeah, we're definitely going to be doing more of this. Probably going to be in other platforms, as I set those up. I had to reinstall everything to set it up for the streaming. But once I set those up, there will be a lot more in the way of realism than this, because this is not very realistic. There are a lot of compromises made. But yeah, between the 3 people here, if you guys have any questions, put it in the chat. Now we are on autopilot. I pretty much don't have anything else to do other than look at the chat. Anything you want to really ask about flying, now is gonna be the time. Also take a look outside. You can see the ice starting to build up on the airplane as it goes through the clouds. So good job, we have anti-ice on. So make sure they are on. And the climb rate is going to slow quite a bit as we cross over, crossing to a higher altitude. That is realistic. The Airbus tends to, I'm not exactly sure what it is. Airbus tend to climb worse and descend better than Boeing, which I guess means they have more drag, but then they don't exactly suffer on fuel economy. So I don't know exactly what's going on. But yeah, this is mostly realistic, at least with the legacy A320s. They do suffer quite a bit in terms of climb rate as they reach the higher altitudes. I mean, don't get me wrong, Boeing airplanes have their own struggles with climb rates when they're really heavy. Something like the 777, it really struggles when you get up to the 30,000 feet mark. What I can also do is turn off this. So now I can look at the chat. Turn off the range on our navigation display. You can see our top of climb, this little, what they call the banana, quite rightfully. This one is our top of climb for our set altitude, and the other one is when we reach our cruise altitude. This one shouldn't even be here right now because we have our cruising altitude set. So again, one of those things that don't reflect real life. So the mod I'm using is called Fly-by-Wire. It's completely free. It's done by a bunch of volunteers, which is amazing because they managed to do more than, the $1 million Microsoft Studio hired. Or rather, that sentence doesn't even make sense. It's $1 million studio that Microsoft hired, which is just amazing. The entire source code is on GitHub, so I mean, if you're in computer science and you're interested in this stuff, maybe you can help out with some features. Should be making it out of the clouds soon, I hope. You can see the sun going down over there. Yeah, we're next to the tops. I did this route earlier. The cloud tops were pretty high. They were about 30,000 feet, I think. Which it looks like a little bit lower over here. We're at 28.7. Take a look outside, see if we can see anything. Nope, we're still in the clouds. Just breaking out. You can see some contrast on the other side. I think it's not this severe. You don't literally see white chunks on the airplane. Okay, in real life, if you start seeing this, it's time to get scared when you have this much ice on the airplane. It's completely overdone. Which, I mean, it helps with the general aviation stuff, so the propeller airplanes, the low and slow stuff. On the jet, if you see all of this, start praying basically, because something definitely isn't going right. It's normal to see a bit of frost on the wings, but it shouldn't look like there's a blizzard on your engine. Crossing 30,000 feet, still in the clouds, which is just great. This is real life weather, by the way. There is a cold front moving into the area. I can just show you guys right here. Let me bring up. Where's my screen? So display. Okay, you guys will see it in a second. There we go. Now I can show you guys. So where you can check the weather, Nav Canada, pretty much the official source, and you go to graphical FA or graphical forecast, and let's say tomorrow morning, and you can see all of these icing areas. That's in the blue, and then everything in the red is turbulence area. So what you see right here is this little symbol. It means moderate icing. and it basically says moderate icing between 3,000 and 7,000 feet, and it is mixed. So that's both impact icing of your airframe hitting the ice, and from just the air being cooler and the moisture condensing. If we go to clouds and weather, you can see the cold front just passing here. This is a high pressure system, so hopefully that's going to bring us some clear skies. It is kind of moving south though, so maybe we're just gonna get the crappy end of the stick as it stands, because we're going to be just off the high pressure system where all the weather activity is. And if we go earlier, you can see, there we go, that's the cold front, so cold air behind it, warm air in front, and then there's a warm front, so warm air here and cold air behind it. And this front is moving this way, this front is moving from here this way, and low pressure system moving northeast at 40 knots. Make sure our airplane isn't exploding back here while we're looking at that. Looks fine, we're climbing at the right speed. We're still in climb mode, climb thrust. We have a crosswind of 97 knots. Ideally I want that to be a tailwind, but looks like we have more of a headwind component. So what this arrow does is it points to the direction the wind is going to. So the wind is coming from here, hitting us like about this way. So mostly a crosswind across, but somewhat of a headwind. And the interesting thing you can note is how the airplane responds to that. So if you imagine a wind coming from our right hand side, it's going to push us to the left, right? So what the airplane does is it crabs into the wind, so-called, because the airplane is essentially flying sideways slightly, and you're turning the airplane into the wind, so a component of your thrust is acting against this crosswind. And you can see that here. The green diamond is our track, so that's where we're going, where the airplane is actually going. This yellow mark is our heading, so that's where the nose is pointed. So if you look outside, it's more or less like, you can see that here, it's more like the nose is pointed here, but we're actually going here. And if you don't have an autopilot, of course you have to do that all manually, and it turns into a mess, and you do need to do loads of calculations, which is what I do when I'm flying in real life, and it's not very accurate. So this stuff is great. It keeps you right on line, right on your flight plan line. You can see that green diamond right here, and the green line. So we are on track. This one is Albany, so we're pretty much already at New York. If only we can see New York below this cloud, that would be great. But it looks like weather isn't on our side today. Yep, that is solidly overcast. It looks like the icing didn't get any worse, which, I mean, shouldn't have gotten this bad in the first place, but it's good. You can see the sun setting over there, just below the horizon there. The registration is fictional, by the way. It's not. This is actually a registration that means quite a bit to me personally. I did my first solo on the. It's a Cessna 152 in real life. This registration. Did my first solo on it. My first official flight lesson is on it. And then my first solo away from the home airport, literally another airplane broke mid-air just so I can switch onto this airplane and do it in that. So that's why I put that on there. Air Canada doesn't have any A320 neos, so I couldn't pull a real life registration on there. Doesn't look like anyone have any questions in the chat, so I guess I'll just keep talking to myself. We have about an hour to go, so I need to find a lot to talk about. I don't know exactly where it's all going to come from. Yeah, I mean, if you guys aren't too bored, I guess we can talk more about weather, but this is probably the most boring part of flying. You can also go here and look at some weather, this stuff, these texts. METAR is the current weather, so you're looking at CYUL, which is the identifier of your airport, Montreal. And this is saying 20th day of the month, so today, 2300 Zulu, so this is UTC. For local time, you subtract 5, which is 18, so this is for 6 p.m. Wind is from 240 true north. The magnetic variation in Montreal is 15 west, so you add 15 to that, so the wind is coming from a compass direction of 255 at 21 knots, gusting to 29 knots. Knots is nautical miles an hour, of course, and 15 statute mile visibility. Statute mile is just a little bit longer than a imperial mile, I think. I don't know exactly how long. Few clouds at 7,000. What few clouds is below the sky is divided into octas, so it's basically a score out of 8. Few clouds is anything below 3 over 8, or 3 of 8 is obscured by the clouds. And you have another set of few clouds at 25,000. Temperature is 14 degrees Celsius. Dew point, so the point where moisture, where basically water in gas state start turning into liquid state, is 4 degrees Celsius. Altimeter is 2999. And this is what I mean by the modification on the sea level pressure. Standard is 2992, so we can see we're a little bit higher than the standard pressure. Remark, this stuff isn't too critical, but what this says is altocumulus cloud, 1 octa, so 1 out of 8, obscuring the sky. I don't know what CI is. We can look that up probably, but I'm not going to. But whatever it is a cumulus cloud of some sort and is going to take up another octa of the sky. And sea level pressure is 157, so what this is in hectopascals, so hundreds of pascals, and you add 10 in front of it, so the current sea level pressure is 1015.7. And everything here, this is everything previous, so if you want to look at how the weather is changing, well, we see the wind was 200, 230, 240, so the wind is shifting to the clockwise. You get 5 knots of wind, 16 knots, 21 knots, so it's getting windier, and it's also getting more unpredictable, so that's 7 knot gust, that's an 8 knots gust. Visibility isn't getting any worse. Well, it's kind of getting worse if you look 30 down to 15, but it's not getting any worse over the past hour. And you can see some overcast clouds starting to clear up. As wind picks up, you expect clouds to clear out, so it was overcast, so completely obscured at 6,700. Now it's going to be just minorly obscured at 7,000 feet. Temperature is dropping as we approach the night, and pressure is rising because if you remember on the GFA a couple minutes ago, I showed the high pressure system moving in. If you guys want, if this stuff is boring and you guys want to leave, come back here in about 40 minutes and we should be starting our descent into Washington. It might be a little bit early, this route is a little bit longer, but yeah, come back in about 45-50 minutes and we should be descending. We can open the range all the way up to 320 nautical miles. You can see our destination over there. I'm just going to follow this route all the way down. We're at 38,000 feet, cruising nicely. Airplane is managing everything. And you look down here, cruise stuff, make sure everything is good. I mean, I guess I can quickly go through this. So fuel used, each engine has used 700 kilos, and altogether they've used over a ton. Oil quantity is the same, 25.0, same as when we took off. Vibration 1.9 is green, so it's normal. That's the big fan vibration. That's the inside of the engine vibration. That's the easy way to think about it. Nice 24 degrees in the cabin. Changing pressure is 7.7 psi. That's a normal figure. Again, it's green, so it's normal. Landing elevation is auto. 50 feet right now, which is as close to sea level as you can get. But if you're like at a high altitude airport, it will automatically set this to like 3,200 feet or whatever the elevation is around you. Cabin vertical speed, that's how quickly the inside pressure is changing, flicking between 0 and 1. In real life, this just indicates 0 feet per minute because it's not changing the inside pressure all the time. And cabin altitude is 8,382 feet above sea level. And this is why you tend to get drunk easier and fall asleep easier on airplanes, because they don't pressurize to sea level. So if you're used to some place like Montreal where the elevation is like 100 feet above sea level, so like pretty much sea level, your body will be more likely to shut down as you go higher up. True air temperature, that's the outside air temperature, minus 29. Static air temperature, it's basically true air temperature except take out moisture and everything. I don't know the exact definition. I should, but I don't. Yeah, so these indications are there to calculate some other figures that you need. And 21 hour 52, this isn't here in real life. I don't know what this is. Oh, it's UTC time, which is not correct. Usually this displays your endurance and gross weight, how much we weigh right now, 49 tons, 0.7. So yeah, that's the cruise. I wish every airplane had this. Unfortunately, they don't. I don't think any of the Boeings have this, so you have to go into these individual pages to check on everything. But not in the Airbus. You get this very nice little cruise menu. Oh, and one thing we neglected to do is set this to 2992. In real life, you push this little button here, not simulated in this. So we'll just dial it down to 2992. Sun is still somewhat above the horizon. Let's flick it to the outside view. Oh, we can see something underneath us. Not sure where this is. We can check some map, I believe. Yeah, there we go. So we're approaching Albany, so this is actually New York. So that's not bad, I guess. That doesn't look like New York on the map to me. I think New York is right here, so yeah, we're gonna turn before that. Yeah, right, the cloud cover is not, we don't have enough horizontal visibility to see the like 100 odd miles to New York. In the sim, that is possible. Pretty much impossible in real life, but in the sim, sometimes you get unlimited visibility and you can see as far as your computer will render. But we're going to turn before that, so we're not going to see New York, unfortunately. But that's okay, because we get to see Baltimore and DC, and the approach is beautiful. I do believe that is the city of Albany. I have driven through here before. I'll see if I can recognize it. That's definitely... That looks like Albany Airport. I don't know the runway numbers, but they do cross 90 degrees like that in real life. I'm trying to spot the main highway that runs through here. I think it might be this one. So you drive south from Montreal, you go through the Champlain checkpoint, and you follow the same highway, the same interstate down to Albany. I think this is it. Let me check ahead to see if it ends. Not too sure what it does. It should end, and it's like a slight offset, and it picks up on the other side again. Yeah, no idea. The visibility is not good enough, and I'm not familiar with it enough. So let's just look at the pretty sunset instead. Drink some water so my throat doesn't kill me talking here for like 3 hours. Back to weather stuff. What else I haven't showed? Oh yes, yeah, even more boring stuff. FDs. These are upper winds, so let's say Ontario, Quebec, below 18,000 feet. And there we go, this is the least interesting thing you can ever look at. So let's have a look at Montreal. So this is the region being published. This is basically an identifier for weather observation. Everything starts with a C in Canada. Forecast based on data from today at 1200 Zulu, which is 12 minus 5 is 8 local, 7 local, so 7 a.m. And data is valid for use 1800 Zulu, so 1 p.m. And you can see you can use it between 1700 and 2100 Zulu. At 3000 feet, wind is 2-4. You just append the 0 to the end for the direction. So 240 magnetic at 32 knots. There's no plus or minus behind it because the temperature is not significantly different from the ground temperature. There's like a set value for this. This is not statistically significant. It's just whether there's enough of a difference or not. 6,000 feet, you can see wind is 250, 44 knots, picking up as you increase in altitude. And the temperature is 3 degrees above zero, so 3 Celsius. 9,000 feet, you start to get 1 Celsius, and wind is 260 at 48 knots, and at 18,000 feet you get 69 knots of wind, and temperature is minus 18 degrees. But yeah, that's probably the least interesting part, and if we want to have some fun, we can look at the Arctic and see how cold it is. Actually, that's not too bad. The 6,000 feet is minus 18. It's warmer than expected. More graphical stuff, we can look at radar. Precipitation rate, we can look at the entire nation, so the entirety of Canada. And it doesn't look like too much precipitation. You can hit play and it will show you, yeah, there you go. So that's all the precipitation. You can see most of them are tracking east, some tracking west on the west coast. So yeah, this is what I mean by, there's kind of this little break here. Maybe I will get to go fly in real life in this little weather break. I've been grounded for about a week now. But I'm kind of worried that the only reason there's no precipitation is because there's ridiculous winds. And we can also go to satellite, which is more current. So let's say Eastern Canada, visible spectrum. Oh yes, right, yeah, sorry. Yeah, it's nighttime. Visible spectrum is not going to give you anything because you can't see anything at night. There we go, infrared. So these are the clouds via infrared satellite imaging. You hit play, and it shows you the prevailing weather pattern. You can see it moving west to east. And I think this stuff is going to drop, no, not this stuff. This stuff over here is going to drop some snow in Montreal over the weekend. It's not too bad, I guess. Most of the bad stuff is moving to the north, and this is the bit of rain and overcast that we got earlier. So yeah, that's pretty much everything you need for what I do in real life, which is visual flight rule flying. RVRs run with visual range. That's mostly for IFR flight, so instrument flight, like the one we're doing in the sim. And we're just going through some turbulence. You'll see the wings flexing. This does happen in real life. The wings are designed to flex. The A320s have a notoriously strong and stiff wings. That's why in the A320, turbulence tends to feel a little bit worse, because when the air hits the wing, it's not bending as much, so more of the shaking is going through the cabin. So the A320 in some high altitude crosswind wind shear is properly scary. And there's something weird about the A320 that I've personally noticed. I don't know the explanation behind it. Every time you hit an updraft, so when the airplane lifts up, you hear a thump right below the floor over the wings. I don't know what it is. I haven't noticed it in any other airplane. Maybe it's something to do with the interior. But literally every time you hear the updraft, it feels like somebody just punched the airplane from underneath the floor. Again, turbulence I feel like is a little bit overdone. It is possible for turbulence like this to, I mean, look at how much the airplane's moving around. It doesn't move around this much in real life. Like, if it moves around this much, there will be people screaming. I mean, if you look on the inside, look at that. Like, the cabin is not going to be a peaceful place in most places. Oh, actually, we're at cruise level, so we can turn on some lights. Let's turn on some floodlights. I mean, I can go for the easy option, just go dome lights to dim, but I mean, that doesn't look as good. It just looks like you just turn on the ceiling light or something. We can make it look better by just turning on these floodlights. You can see where the lighting positions are. Glare shield doesn't light up. These knobs, that controls all the display brightness. In fact, we can start preparing for night flight, which is dimming these displays down slightly. Integral lights, so that's the text. That can stay max. No, I shouldn't. Yeah, okay. Unrealistic part number 5,450,000. This doesn't happen if you turn this display off in the middle of the flight. This only happens when you power it on for the first time. Again, shortcuts in the simulation. There we go, we have everything back. So that's already at the dimmest setting, so that's good. We want them to be dim. Oh my god, again, yeah. Obviously in real life it's easier to tell where these is, or where these buttons are relative to the off position. I'm surprised the three of you are still here, to be honest, because this is the most boring part of the entire flight. But yeah, we can see the end of our route coming up soon. So yeah, apart from that, everything looks good in here. We're still on our route, and we are in the cruise phase. Everything is looking good. We will set this up as we get closer. We don't need to worry about that too much, just because of how simplified the simulation is. We don't even really need to fill in that last page. I mean, look, we already have our speed. That's just dumb. The real life airplane, it will guess, but it's not going to be anywhere near where you should be flying if you don't enter these things. So that's your sea level pressure and wind and everything. Wind is not as critical, but sea level pressure, yeah, definitely. Quick thing, might as well get all the unrealistic stuff out of the way. Full and config 3, what that does is you can either land flaps full, which is 4, or you can land flaps 3. You can select this in real life, but you can't select it in this because it's not simulated. Config 3 very rarely used if you're landing in really high winds. I guess you can use config 3, so it's less flaps, less surface area to catch the wind. So the airplane flies a little bit faster on approach, but it's easier to handle. And when you're landing config 3, you have to look up here, and on the ground proximity warning, you will have to go landing flap 3, turn this switch on. And that is completely wrong, because that should be a blue light showing on, like here. Because normally this will be disabled, right? So it makes sense when you push it, you turn it on, and it shows on. And what that does is, when you're landing flap 3, it stops the GPWS from shouting that you're about to hit the ground. So you basically tell us that you do intend to hit the ground with flap 3, just, you know, gently. So yeah, let's jump back into the flight plan. Everything's looking good. Another thing this thing doesn't do is doesn't tell you where the top of descent is. In the real airplane, you get one of those little white banana thing on here, and once you cross over, it will say decelerate, and then you start your descent. It doesn't show on here. Seems like we broke out of the turbulence, so let's go seatbelt signs off. Because I mean, we all know that one person who like you sit in the terminal for like 3 hours, they don't use the washroom, and like 2 seconds after the wheels lift off the ground, they gotta run to the bathroom. I mean, come on. If you've flown commercial enough, you know that one guy. Right, what else? I need something to pass the time, and I don't know what. I need to prepare this better for the next stream. Weather cams, I guess we can take a look at that. Canada. This is actually the airport I fly out of, which is Saint-Hubert. And it's at night, so you don't really see much, but yeah, there you go. This is what it looks like in a day. My flight school should be somewhere over here. It should be one of these buildings here. I can't really see where it is. It's somewhere over here. And this is a view from the tower. Let's find somewhere that's not night yet. Let's say Vancouver. Yeah, there you go. Oh yes, yeah, typically Vancouver weather. Low overcast and everything. We'll see some reference. This is from the bottom of the tower as well. This is the international departures area. And they're building a new section over here, and this is the Air Canada domestic. And then if you behind here is the WestJet domestic. I can just show you guys. So for the reference, you can see it's an older picture because you get Lufthansa 747s here. They're all retired now. This 400s. So Southeast has a Fairmont Hotel. SkyTrain line runs here. This is probably more relevant for, I think a couple of you are from my Vancouver high school days. So I'm gonna go through this. If you're from Montreal or elsewhere in the world, this probably doesn't really mean much, but this is what Vancouver's airport looks like. Ridiculously expensive hotel, Fairmont right here. Good plane spotting place though. You get a room up there and you get to look down at the apron, which is an interesting angle. SkyTrain, which is the metro system that runs over here. That's the US check-in, and this is the US departures. That's a parking garage. That's the south runway. This is a SkyTrain station. You see the tracks running along there. Northwest is unavailable. That's fine. And Southwest is unavailable. Oh, that's the one that was. That's the one I wanted. Which is. Oh, there we go. Okay, there. Historical image. So, yes, this is the WestJet departures wing. You come out of the SkyTrain. You go down here. Domestic check-in is over here, international check-in is over here, and yeah, the airport layout is kind of strange, but it's a pretty good airport. It's one best airport in North America for like 5 or 7, maybe even 9 years in a row. And if you go there, yeah, it's quite nice. What else do we have left? We can look at pilot reports. That's what PIREP stands for. See if there's anything interesting. Let's see what this stuff says. So CYXX, that is Abbotsford. Oh yeah, this is where I used to fly. So Sumas practice area, this is where Abbotsford is. It's just a little bit east of Vancouver, just before the mountains. Time is 2200 Zulu, so this was made couple hours ago. Yeah, about 2 hours ago. Flight level 10, that's 1,000 feet. A Cessna 172 reported moderate turbulence between 1,000 and 2,000. And remark is the Sumas practice area. I am guessing it's because of wind in Vancouver. It tends to get really bumpy down there. And it's reporting moderate turbulence, most likely because these guys hit what feels like severe turbulence in their Cessnas. In fact, if anything, this might actually be my flight instructor. He has a habit of doing this. If you hit severe turbulence in these tiny little airplanes, you report it as moderate because it basically only feels severe because you're in a tiny airplane. So this might actually be him. He has a habit of doing this. But other than that, this is Whitehorse, I think. Yeah, it came out of Whitehorse. I don't know where CAJ9 is. I can look that up. CAJ9, Fort Ware, which means absolutely nothing to me because I have no idea where it is. Yeah, I don't know where that is, but I'm assuming somewhere north of Vancouver, obviously. 2200, a couple hours ago. I don't know what that means. Flight level unknown. Okay. There should be a space there. Flight level unknown. Type is an R-44 helicopter, that is. Sky is unknown, overcast. Wind is unknown. Remark trench south of, I don't know what CYQH is. Clear, winds 15 gusts 20, overcast by CJ9. Okay. So I guess what he's trying to say is there's a break in the clouds, or let's just say low pressure area just south of wherever CYQH is. CYQH is Watson Lake. It's in Yukon actually. So Watson Lake again, don't know where it is. So it's clear, winds is 15 gusts 20, but it's overcast by the time you get to CJ9. That's what they're trying to say, I think. There's nothing in Winnipeg. There's not. Oh, Toronto is having a fun time. I really don't know why there's those 3 of you here. I turned around kind of half expecting to be talking to myself. But I mean, I'm glad some of you are actually finding this interesting. Let me just refresh the page to make sure that is actually. Apparently there's like 3 of you here, that's great. So what does this say? CYTS, don't know where that is. Timmins, okay, so this is Western Ontario. Time 23:53, so this is actually really recent. Flight level, no idea what that stands for. Type A74, I've never heard of these things. What's an A748? It's not. I don't know what that is. A usually is Airbus. Let's start. I'm guessing it's like some general aviation airplane. So it's reporting moderate mixed icing between 1,500 and 5,000. Remark approach runway 3. Okay, so what this is saying is Timmins Airport approaching runway 3. You can expect moderate mixed icing when you descend from 5,000 feet to 1,500. Okay, so it's actually probably a reasonable airplane because it's flying into icing. Pretty dangerous icing if your airplane isn't rated to fly into icing. We look at our flight here. We want to start a descent at about 100. Actually, let's leave it to about 60 miles. So at about Roast, so halfway past Roast right here. So right here we will start descending. This airplane descends exceptionally well. Like power comes to idle and this thing plunges like the space shuttle. I don't feel like it's realistic. Even the old A320s don't descend that well. I mean, I know I've been going on about them descending better than Boeing's and more draggy and stuff, but I mean, if you want to get it down, you still need speed brakes. But this airplane descends really well, so I'm comfortable leaving it really late. Looks like we've broken out into clear skies. If you know the geography of this area, you probably know where what these stuff are. That's a really big city. You can check what that is. That might be New York. No, that's just in front of us. Yeah, I have no idea. New York is way past us already. Yeah, that is New York. What's right next to New York? Boston? No, not Boston. Let's take a look at Google Maps. Oh yeah, Philly, of course. So yeah, that's probably Philly, that's New York. And it's turning to very nice weather all of a sudden, which is great because it's going to look wonderful as we cross over DC twice. So if you see approaching here, we're going to go this way and then loop back, and in between those two routes is the downtown core. I have a mod installed of landmarks in Washington, so we should hopefully see the White House, Capitol building, and everything like that. Actually, no, what I mean, it's a Capitol building in Philly, but anyway, you know what I mean, like the area of the White House, Washington Monument and everything, we should see that. Again, I don't know who you are with all the puns, but alright. I mean, it's more interesting than what I'm talking about, so I'll leave you to it. I have a few guesses who it might be, but I'm not going to say it because the stream is recorded. This is going to be uploaded to our YouTube channel, so I'll just leave it at that. Okay, back to these pirates. Let's see what Toronto's up to. So, YXU is London, Ontario, that is. Yeah, it is London, just making sure. 2121, time is 21:21, so a little bit older. I believe this is Oshawa, CYOS. OS. No, it's Owen Sound, apparently. Billy Bishop Regional. What is this reporting? Flight level 20. Type is another tiny little Cessna. It's reporting broken at 2,300 feet. Okay. That's it. Okay, right. Here's what I think is happening. The ceiling is probably reported drastically different from 2,300 feet. What these guys did, they climbed up to 2,000, figured out where the top, where the bottom of the clouds are, a broken layer of 2,300, and reported that. I think that's what's happening. So maybe, probably just trying to help out other people in the area. Maybe the weather is like on the border, and some adventurous guy went out there to actually figure out what it is. Again, coming out of London Airport, CYYU, I don't know where that is either. CYYU is, I'm not even gonna try that. It's spelled KAPUSKASING. I don't know how that is pronounced. Again, I don't know what this stands for. So time is 2058. Type is a DC-3T. I think that's the Beaver. I think that's the DHC-3T, so turbine Beaver. It's reporting moderate mixed icing between 6,000 and 2,000. So yeah, that cold front is coming. You can see these icing reports all over the place. And right here, I skipped this one, didn't I? CYTS. Yeah, Timmins. So same place from Timmins. This might mean like ground level or something. So type MU2. I think that's one of those old Mitsubishi turboprops. And again, it's reporting icing, light mixed, and that's on approach to runway 3. So if I was flying in the area, this I would very much be interested in if I'm flying out of Timmins. So 2105 to 2353. The icing has gotten worse, so it's from mixed light to mixed moderate. And this one doesn't say where it is, which is not going to be as helpful, but you can see the icing is getting worse from light to moderate. So if I was flying in the area, that means stay on the ground. Montreal area, CYUI, that's ruined. Time 2320, flight level 50, type is a Beechcraft 1900, tiny twin propeller aircraft, twin turboprop. It's a commuter airplane, about 18 people capacity. So he's at 5,000 feet, moderate icing, clear skies at 5,000 feet. Oh, okay. So I would assume he reported this coming out of the airport. He's climbing out and he's reporting moderate icing when you're climbing, and it will be clear at 5,000 feet. Yeah, remark, he's en route from Rouen to CYVO, I think is Goose Bay. CYVO, Val d'Or, yes, yeah, Val d'Or. And the next one coming from Quebec, CYMT, never heard of that. CYMT, again, this is a place I can't pronounce. I think it's pronounced like Sebugamo or something like that. It's not pronounced how it's spelled, that's what I remember. I have seen it somewhere. Time 2106, don't know what that is. It's a -8, -A300, and he is approaching light, I'm guessing light icing. Light icing on approach. No idea what this is trying to say. See, light is usually meant to do icing. That's telling you he's on approach. That's visibility, but he doesn't say anything about visibility and just tells you that he's at 1,900 feet. wouldn't it be better to report flight level 019 and go icing, light, visibility, report that, and then remark approach? But I mean, oh well. Let's look at Gander. Okay, the Atlantic is really calm today, apparently. Moncton, yeah, there's nothing there. Edmonton, okay, yeah. Well, that's all the pilot reported, so that's all the interesting things pilots have to say right now all over Canada. And again, it's cool little things like this. If you're interested in aviation, you can have a look at it and just kind of get an idea of what it's like out there. And what else can we look at? I think that's pretty much it. Let's look at how we're doing here. So we are approaching the Rose waypoint. I'm going to get up, get myself some water, and we will pick back up in the flight sim with our descent planning. So let's return to the flight sim, and I shall be back shortly. Right, it is time to get serious again, I guess. Let's see. For our approach, I need to get out of my charts. So first we're going to be looking at the arrival procedure. You guys can't see any of it. I'm using an app called Flight Plan Go. You can download it for free on your phone. And it is everything that pilots use in real life. In North America, everything's for free. So if you want to have a look at the procedures, you can. So we're taking the skills for arrival, and we're going to enter at Lima Romeo Papa, which is Lancaster VOR. And we've already entered that. So at Vinny, we want to be at, well, there's no specific altitude for Vinny, but as skills, we want to be at 12,000 feet. So let's begin a descent now. There's no way we're going to make 12,000 feet by that, but we can try. So in the actual airplane, the flight management computer will tell you exactly where to descend to make that altitude. Okay, so we have a few restrictions. Again, we're way more hands-on right here than the Airbus normally would be in real life. We have a lot less assistance from the computer. So from skills, we're expecting 12,000 feet. And then next waypoint at Baltimore, we are expecting 10,000 feet. And then we're basically, there's no more restrictions, so we have to manage our own descent down to this Echo Delta Delta Whiskey Delta. Let's enter an extra waypoint. Again, you realize the airplane puts all of this for you. We just have to do it ourselves here. So let's hit next waypoint. And let's enter. And it doesn't want to enter for whatever reason. I was thinking to myself, I swear I did this before I left, but maybe I'm going crazy, and apparently I'm not going crazy. Come on. No, you don't want to go in there. Yep, okay, it doesn't want to go in. Oh well. But yeah, we are very high for our entered route, because our entered route is completely wrong, which is fine. What we're going to do is we're going to pull out the heading knob and set the heading ourselves. Let's go back to manage for now, but we can extend our approach that way. So we've cleared skills way high, and we're going to go to 10,000 feet straight away, because at Baltimore we're expecting a restriction of 10,000 feet and 250 knots. We're already at 240 knots, so we don't need to worry about that. Now let's set up our approach. So the things we need, again, primarily is around weather. Arrival ATIS is 132.65. .65, and open this up. Wind is calm, that's good. Visibility 10, skies few clouds 800 view. Weather is not ideal. Temperature is 6. You can put that in already. Dew point 10, altimeter is 3043. ILS runway 1 in use, we don't care. Let's punch in 3043. Actually, no, we can't do that yet, because in the Airbus, you push that in, and you immediately switch altimeter, which you shouldn't be doing. So let's dial 3043 for now. We get the QNH by flicking it onto hectopascal, so 1030, we need to remember that, back to standard. So 1030. Magnetic wind, we can just enter 0/0 because wind is calm. Transition altitude is 18,000 feet, same everywhere in North America. Our minimum decision altitude, that we're going to find on our procedure chart for the runway. We're on a visual approach, which means our technical minimum descent altitude starts at the beginning of the approach. But if you remember, we're backing it up using the RNAV approach, and for that one, our minimum decision height is 478 feet. So in decision height, 478 goes in there, and everything is set up. Our landing speed is 136 knots. Approach speed is that plus 5, so 141 knots. So the auto throttle will hold the airplane at that speed on our approach. I think we're gonna be fine on the descent, actually. I mean, we're still way above our target, but it's actually not too bad. In fact, you can see the airport right there, I'm pretty sure. So we're gonna go over here, that's the Potomac River. We're going to follow the river all the way down. We're going to make a left turn to land on that runway right there. So this is runway 19, we're going to approach this end, landing this way. And if we go to the outside view, there you go, beautiful. So that's Baltimore behind us. I believe this is Baltimore Airport. And then you look ahead of us and it's Washington DC, and you see Dulles somewhere, which is a bigger airport, and we are landing at Washington National. This is an air base. It is on the procedures. I need to check what it is. Not the river visual. I don't remember exactly which chart it's on, but that is an actual airbase, like in-service airbase as well. I believe it is yeah, that is Joint Base Andrews right there. Anyway, let's get back to our flight. So we will have to extend the heading. We're not going to bother with that right now. We're going to let the airplane turn, and then we're going to extend this way and manually bring the airplane around. In fact, I might just take it around to Dulles Intercontinental. It's a huge airport. We can overfly that. As long as we stay above 8,000 feet, we can overfly that. – 20,000 feet, we are not looking too bad. We're actually pretty much on profile was what I envisioned. It's just we're not following the procedures right now because I didn't know what the procedure was. Now we're approaching 18,000, so we do need to keep an eye out. And now we can set up for landing. First things first, we need to turn auto brake to medium. Runway is quite short, so we can't use low, and we don't really need max. So medium should be a good setting. We should come to a stop fairly well. Arm the speed brake, so as soon as we touch down, as soon as the main gears compress, spoilers, so the stuff over the wings will come up automatically to get rid of all the lift. Everything else looks good here. Auto brake is set, speed brake is armed, and we are crossing flight level 180, so we need to push this in for 3043, which is local altimeter. And you can see because it's higher pressure, the altitude jumped up, so now we're crossing 18,000 feet again. Let's see where Dulles is by turning on the airport display on the navigation. And this is unrealistic. I think the sim is only showing you the airport it renders. In real life, it will show you everything because that is based on a database. It doesn't have to do with where you are. So yeah, I haven't seen that bug before, but now I have. Let's see if we can see it visually. We should be able to see it visually somewhere. It's somewhere over the Potomac this way. And you can see our airport right there. Or at least I believe that's our airport. The layout is correct, but I'm not seeing any of the landmarks. So we turn over the city. Yes, that is our airport. So we're going to come down the river all the way through here, and then we're going to make a left turn onto that runway. Brilliant. Now we know what we're going to do. Let's focus on doing the task at hand first. My frame rate is rubbish. It's 18. Good luck to me landing in that. Glad I have lots of practice from the old flight sims of having to land in terrible frame rate. Let's turn the floodlights off. You do this to preserve your night vision, of course. And there goes out the airport, so let's see, where is... it's over here, okay. So what we're going to do, because we're really high, we're going to let the airplane turn. And once it levels the wings, we're going to pull this knob out, and we're going to fly a selected heading. For the wings to level, and now. So now we're on the select headings. The airplane will fly in this direction forever until we change something, basically. Turn off all the airport display. We're going to descend to about 8,000 feet, and then we're going to turn the airplane back around to our first approach waypoint, which is Fergie. Now, one last thing we need to do before the visual approach. Radio and navigation page. VOR1, very high frequency omnidirectional radio, which is a navigation name. We're approaching the altitude. Let's dial that down to 5,000. And below 10,000, we want to go landing lights on. So we extend them from underneath the wings, and we go on. Nose light also goes to takeoff. Once the nose comes down, the nose wheel comes down, the Nose light will go on. Wing lights on, again, to prevent burst strike. Runway turn-off light, we can leave that off for now. Anti-ice can stay on. Seatbelt signs will also come on at 10,000 feet. And as we descend right here, we are going to enter our VOR1. We need this as a reference. The frequency is 111.0. Enter that, and on the navigation display we switch to VOR1. And there we have VOR DCA, which is Washington National, and it will tell us our distance from it. We're 18.3 nautical mile, we're flying away, so that's why that's increasing. And on the approach, we have many checkpoints. We have one checkpoint at 10 miles, then at 6 miles, 4 miles, 3 miles. Our primary reference is going to be the outside, but we should also verify it with our distance from the VOR. So we're going to wait for the airplane to descend a little bit more. We need to also give ourselves room to slow down. We're at 240 knots, which is about 100 knots too fast for our landing speed, so we need to give ourselves some space, and be able to level the airplane out and slow it down. This button, usually you will turn this on. It's the landing system. It will show you your glide paths. You don't need this for the VNAV approach. You can if you're flying exclusively the VNAV, but we know we're going to be visual, so we can have that off. (6,500 feet). Let's start turning the airplane back around. So let's turn the airplane to the left by just switching the heading over, and we are going to go direct to Fergie. Enter that into there. I'm not sure if it will take it. There we go. That's fine. Temporary insert, and we can go back onto manage heading. And the airplane will turn us all the way around to the Fergie waypoint. And bug right there, that should have gone away when I turned off the landing system. There we go, now it goes away. And we will descend to 3,000 feet, which is our waypoint altitude for Fergie. Next, what we do, this is automatic once you pass a point in the real airplane, not simulated so much in this one. We have to manually do activate approach, confirm approach phase. And you can see the airplane starting to slow down here. Now I'm going to be setting the field of view kind of tight, so it might look a little bit weird on your screen, but with track IR is going to be perfect for me. And I will be flying the airplane manually, but with auto throttle, so power is going to be managed by the airplane. Everything else I will do myself. Okay, so you can see that we're below these double yellow bars. What that means is we can deploy flaps 1. Now in the air it's different, only the leading edge comes out, so only the slats, the flaps don't come out. And the green dot speed is the point where we deploy flaps 2. And passing that, we'll go flaps 2. And you can see the F appearing on the speed tape. What that is showing is our speed for a landing flap setting. So if you do flap 3, that's going to be your final speed. But we're going flaps 4, so this pin will move down once we go flap 3. We're not going to go flap 3 just yet. We want to go gear down first, and we're way too far out for that. So approach briefing, not really required. I don't think we're going to get that technical. But basically, we're looking for a bunch of waypoints. I will call them out as we go through, and there are specific altitudes we have to be at. One thing we have to watch out for is a prohibited no-fly zone. Is zone 56 Alpha and Bravo. I believe it's to protect the Pentagon and the White House. So yeah, we want to keep to the center of the river because flying into either one of those probably means a lot of trouble. If you need to know where we are, that's the airport. So we came from over here, we turned this way, and then we are now circling back around to land this way. And let's just put this on. I no longer have any time to look at the chat. This is going to be very intense in terms of workload. bring the range down. We are still a decent way out from Fergie. I wanted to do this. I wanted the airplane to slow down and give myself time for the approach. And something we can also prepare for is we have a slight crosswind from the right at about 16 knots. So when we fly down the river, the airplane will want to go left. So we want to make sure we keep it to the right. Because remember, on the left is the White House and Pentagon no-fly zone. We don't want to go in there. So 3,000 feet, we're established. Everything is stable. The airplane is configured. We will get landing checklists on here automatically in a bit, but just not right now. I'll let the airplane fly for another 5 miles, and I'm going to disconnect the autopilot and I will have control. But other than that, we're going to land on runway 19. We're going to pull the power early because the runway is relatively short. We have medium auto brake, so we're going to be using up quite a bit of runway. Taxi back isn't as long as Montreal, but you still have to go down the length of the runway, and we're going to park up after that. We've been in the air for 1 hour and 14 minutes. I've never basically had a monologue for this long before, but it's been working relatively well, I think. It's a little bit bumpy. We're just going to make my life even harder, as if it wasn't hard enough before flying an entire visual approach. Now when I'm flying the approach, I probably won't be able to have a hand on the mouse. What you can look for is altitude. Obviously the outside waypoint I'm going to point out. And you can also watch this number right here under the DCAVOR. It's probably going to be hard to see if you're on the phone or something, but you can see it counting down, 14.8, 0.7, and as we get closer, it's basically going to it's going to count down with 1 decimal point behind the whole number. We can search a range all the way down to 10. Again, we can stay in the arc because we only need to see ahead. Now, at 470 feet, if we don't see the runway or if we're unstable, we're going to go around straight ahead. So we're going to level the airplane, climb straight out, and then we're going to come back and try again. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Visibility is good, so we're definitely going to see the runway. We see the runway right now. But if the airplane becomes unstable, we might elect to go around. So go around, we're going to go full power, flaps 2, and gear up once we have a positive rate of climb. Right, approaching the waypoint, we can start looking out the window at where our first reference is going to be. We're looking for a long rectangular building. It is the David W. Taylor Naval Research and Development Center at 10 DME, and we want to be at 3,000 feet. Right next to the development center is the American Legion Memorial Bridge, so we verify using that waypoint. Next one after that is the Delacaria Reservoir, and just past that is a chain bridge. We want to overfly that at 1,800. Then after that, Georgetown Reservoir, 1,540 DME. Then next one, Key Bridge, 900 feet at 3 DME. And then we're looking for 4 different bridges. We're looking for the Roosevelt Memorial and Rochambeau. As the last one, we're going to aim for the middle of the bridge, and we will turn towards the runway just a little bit before the bridge. So that's the approach. Probably doesn't mean much if you aren't looking at the approach chart, but everything, it will become apparent once we start the approach. So we're coming up to the Fergie waypoint. Right there is the Naval Research and Development Center. This very long building. You can see the chain bridge right here, or rather the Legion Memorial Bridge right here, 3,000 feet. Airplane is going to start to turn. I'm actually going to take over manual control, so autopilot 1 off, I have control. And we're going to begin a descent. We want about 1,000 feet per minute vertical speed. The airplane still has auto throttle, but I have manual control. We're also going to go landing gear down and flaps 3. We're already below the limits and the maximum flap speed, so we will go flaps full. And you can see the river right below us. The one we're looking for is the Dalecarlia Reservoir, which is a small body of water right there. You can just see the light reflection. You might have to turn up the brightness on your device if you have it really dark. Alright, flaps is set to full. Gear down 3 greens. Speed brakes are on. Auto brake is set to medium. We have approach speed 138. And the radio altimeter is alive. We are good. So that's the Dalecarlia Reservoir, and that is the chain bridge. It's hard to see because it's not lit up, but we want to cross that at 1,800, which means we gotta get on with the descent. We're also going to turn flight director off so the bars don't distract us. In the real airplane, if you hit the power for a go round, it will automatically come up. Not sure if it's simulated in this, I haven't checked. 1,800 feet, we gotta level out. We don't want to descend below our minimum altitude. You can see the power increasing automatically, and before landing checklist, again, gear down 3 green, signs are on, cabin check, not our responsibility, speed brakes are armed, and flaps are full. Before landing checklist is complete. Okay, crossing the chain bridge. Next one is the Georgetown Reservoir, 1,500. Again, we want to hold about a 800, 900 feet per minute descent. Looking at the VOR, we are at 6 DME, which is exactly correct, in fact. And this is the Georgetown Reservoir. It's rendered kind of weird in the sim. We want to be at 1,500 feet, so let's shallow out our descent. And one last thing we can do is turn on the runway turnoff lights. Okay, there's the Georgetown Reservoir. I'm getting 27 frames a second, which is still not good, but it is workable. So we're past that already. We're going to continue descent. Next one is the Key Bridge at 900 feet. We're a little bit high, need to keep descending. You can see the nice pretty buildings of DC outside. We have our runway. Is this one going across? Not this one that we're actually aiming at, so that's why it's an exciting approach. A little bit high, so let's increase our descent rate. Airplane calls sync rate, that's fine. I have that very much in control. And crossing that bridge at about 900 feet. Now, 3 sets of bridges. Roosevelt Bridge, Memorial Bridge, and Rochambeau Bridge. We keep descending over these two. These are just references. Washington Monument on the left, all lit up. And this is what we're aiming for. We're aiming for the middle of the bridge. And this is our runway. We can see the approach lights. You see 2 red, so we're a little bit low. We need to bring the nose up just a little bit. We want red and white. There we go. We have red on white. We're now on glide slope. I can't use the mouse anymore because I need to get ready on the throttle to pull back to idle. Let's increase our descent just a little bit. We want to maintain that as much as possible, aiming for the middle of the bridge.
500.
And we're going to aim for, if you see the strobe light running across towards the runway, we're aiming for the beginning of that with our turn. Turning right, minimums, we have runway inside, we're stable, we are landing.
400.
Still a little bit high, but we are still on glide slope.
300.
Aiming for the end of those lights, we want the airplane wings level over those lights ideally. Touchdown zone is 1,000 feet down the runway, we're probably going to flow past that. Wind is completely calm, so that's helping me out a little bit. Now we're aligned.
100.
100 feet, crossing the threshold, we're going to go thrust idle.
50.
Just let the airplane fly itself down.
30. 20. Retard.
Nose up. Hold it off, hold it off.
5.
And we're down. Speed brakes up. Reverse green. Auto brake doing the same. We have decel. 80 knots, idle reverse. 60 knots, reverse off, and manual braking. And we can make this exit right here. So not a high-speed exit, so we gotta slow right down. We'll add a little bit of power back to just keep the speed going. And welcome to Washington. Wasn't too bad. Now exiting the runway, we're going to clean the airplane up, so flaps all the way up. And we're going to go this way towards the terminal. Now, short taxi, a lot shorter than I imagined, so APU on right away. We need electrical power after we shut down the engines, bring up the power a little bit. Auto brake has gone off automatically. Auto throttle should have gone off automatically. It's a bug with this, so we need to manually disengage. And exiting the runway, we need to go landing lights off and nose wheel to taxi. Rather nose light to taxi, retract the landing lights, runway turn offs can go off, strobes can go to auto, and wing lights can go to off. We're looking for our parking. You should see, yeah, okay, so we are taking this parking. The problem is, this is really buggy. I'm using a mod airport that's a little bit more realistic, but the ground positions hasn't changed. So we're not going to get any kind of marshal guidance as we pull into the gate. We just have to judge it ourselves. We're slowing right down here because I'm waiting for the APU to start up. We don't want to pull into the gate and just leave the engines running for like the next minute. And we can also turn off flight director on the other side. Basically, we're cleaning the airplane up. Speed brakes are already retracted, so that's fine. Add a little bit of power to just keep the airplane rolling. And what we can do also is turn off all of our anti-ice. Now, as we approach the apron, we're technically already inside the apron, so let's go nose light to off. Again, we don't want to blind any ground personnel except at night. Or rather, sorry, especially at night. Because these nose wheel lights, the height is almost perfectly positioned to be like eye level, so you really do want them off. APU should be available now. Yep, APU is available, so let's go bleed air on. Now we have APU power. So if we shut down the engine, the airplane won't go into emergency power. And here's the APU starting up in the background. And another thing I'm surprised about is we didn't get a brakes overheat warning. I suppose it is pretty cold now, it's -2, so. But the Airbus has a tendency, especially on heavier braking applications, to overheat the brakes, and you need to turn the brake fan on. So we can see our lead-in line right here. We're going to employ the jet method of, we're just going to overshoot it. It looks like we're just taxiing right past it right now, but we're not. So we're going to overshoot the side view. We're going to go full left rudder, add power to keep the airplane rolling. Using a little bit of brake to help it around, and the nose should come back all the way around pretty much on center line. We'll see how well I judge it. It's a bit of an acquired skill depending on what airplane I fly. You see I overshot a little bit. But yeah, this stuff you just have to learn with the jets, because there's so much airplane behind you, you need to overshoot. That's our marshaller. Again, he's facing that way, so he's expecting us to come in this way. We're not, because we're just following the lines on the ground. We'll just taxi towards here, and we'll just roughly judge when to stop. Add more power because airplane wants to come to a stop in this. And I know it looks like we're going to run these guys right over, but trust me, it's a perspective thing. And let's stop right there. Alright, full stop. Parking brake is on. We have APU power. APU is running. On APU bleed, we can shut the engines down. So engine 1 and 2 off. We're looking for N2 to spool down. Looking for 25% on N2. There goes 25 both sides. We can now turn the beacon lights off and strobe lights to off. And we can turn the seatbelt signs off. Passengers can get up and get their luggage. And we are here. Entire airline flight from Montreal to DC, real time. Hope you enjoyed it. Landing was pretty beautiful. We couldn't have asked for better weather, completely calm winds, completely clear skies, and we overflew the DC area twice, didn't really have much time to look over at the monuments. I might do that as a separate stream actually, to just fly over these cities and just look at the glorious scenery offered by this sim. And one last thing is we gotta shut the airplane down and put it to bed. So what we're gonna do here is a short turnaround, because that's what they do in real life. These airplanes don't overnight in Washington, they gotta come back to Canada. So it's very simple in the Airbus. Go to the overhead panel, external power is available, let's flick that to on. These stay in the nav, it's a short turnaround, so you don't need to recalibrate them. Everything stays right here. Fuel pumps go off. Coming down through here, everything here is good. APU stays on, that stuff is off. Wing light goes on just for the next crew for their inspection. Everything here is good. APU stays on again. Seatbelt is off. No smoking stays on. We can turn on the dome light just so it's a bit brighter when we're getting out. Emergency lights stay armed, because as soon as passengers get off, the next wave comes on. Everything here is good. Let's come back down to the pedestal. FMCs are already reset, that's fine. The instruments are good. One thing what we're going to do is turn off the VOR. And right here, parking brake is set, everything is good. We can turn off the transponder now and turn off the TCAS. We could have done that once we exited the runway. It's more of an annoyance rather than a problem. And predictive wind shear can go off. This is something I should have turned off before the runway. Not as much of a big deal when you don't have weather radar on, but good practice. And everything is shut down. So, hope you guys enjoyed that one. I think it was a fun flight. I decided to do this one because it is one of the more scenic ones in flight sim. And this river visual approach, once COVID restrictions lift, I do highly recommend you to try it. Obviously, when you buy your ticket, you don't know where the winds are coming from, but a lot of times they do use this. Sit on the right hand side if you want to see more of downtown, and sit on the left hand side if you want to see things like Pentagons and White House and everything. I would personally recommend right hand side, but that's just me. So yeah, and also another thing, it looked like we were running these guys over. Look at how far we are actually from them. So that's another thing. But yeah, hope that was a fun flight. We will be back very soon. Keep an eye out on our Facebook page, and we will announce our next event right there. So until next time, to use a quote from 7-4 Gear, keep the blue side up.